It's Thursday, July the 2nd, 2026, and it's time for The Swamp, where I cover daily updates inside our federal machine. If you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe and leave a comment. Click on the notification bell, and I'll keep you up to date on everything in The Swamp from Monday through Friday. Every article is linked below in the description, and the highlight segments from tonight's episode will begin dropping right here on the channel tomorrow morning, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to start things off with a little video that President Trump added to his personal X account today. So let's give this a watch.
Been diagnosed with TDS? The symptoms can be relentless. Fortunately, I'm Dr. Trump, and I have a treatment plan. Let's hear what some of my patients have to say.
I have been suffering for over a decade, and after listening to Dr. Trump, I can see some results.
Man, I've been suffering for years. I really didn't believe that was help out there. That was when I came across this video on TV.
I really thought I was a lost cause. This was going to affect me for the rest of my life. But after using the treatment plan, I can see a difference.
I really wasn't sure I could help some of these people. They were so far gone, I wasn't really sure.
I had no idea how much this was affecting my life. My work is slowed down. I'm hardly recognizable anymore. I just needed help. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Constantly angry.
Angry diarrhea.
I made everyone miserable around me.
I feel like I've aged 20 years in the last 2 years.
Ain't that the truth?
I've been so concerned. I was really starting to worry about my future.
The treatment is simple. Turn off. Fake news. Say your prayers, and if you ever feel anxious, just have a Diet Coke like me, and you're going to see a remarkable difference in your life.
Yeah, there you go. Just have a Diet Coke, just like Dr. Trump, and you'll see a remarkable difference in your life. 19 million views already, and when was this posted? 11 hours ago. At 9:58 a.m. today, July the 2nd. So I figured I'd lead with that. We're getting closer to the 4th of July. Not necessarily the news is slowing down in the swamp. I mean, it really honestly kind of is. There's not really a whole hell of a lot to talk about. Nothing like really earth-shattering happening, at least not to the tune where 50, 60, 65 posts are required to do like a 2.5-hour video. Although it's not to say that nothing happened today, because there was still plenty that happened today, or at least over the last 24 hours. We're going to go with Bill Milligan for the next post. This is from 8 hours ago. In case you missed it, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz pardoned an illegal alien convicted of repeatedly, vaginally, and orally R-ing a 10-year-old girl who told police it's normal in his culture to have sex with prepubescent girls. Then he suggested the child was also at fault and should be arrested. He pardoned this guy, may now shield him from his imminent deportation as his record is wiped clean, and he can now fight his removal in court much easier. And another one for Bill Milligan. This was from yesterday. DHS is accusing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz of trying to shield a Laotian illegal alien pedophile from being deported after Walz pardoned him for a 2006 conviction in which he repeatedly R-ed a 10-year-old girl in Minnesota. DHS says Tao Lei Vang was issued a deportation order immediately after that conviction and was set to be imminently deported. But the pardon has now removed his deportable offenses and given him a clean record, which may thwart his removal and give him an avenue to fight deportation. So, warning, graphic details below. I'm going to read it. I'm going to try to clean it up as much as I can just for the sake of YouTube, because you know how YouTube is over here. So, according to Vang's conviction documents from the state of Minnesota in 2004, he repeatedly had, you can read it on screen, sex with a 10-year-old girl on multiple occasions and forced oral, upon her, in which he, into her, he told police, I made a mistake, but this is a minor thing. It's a cultural thing to marry and have sex with girls as young as 12. He also said the child should be arrested, and she was also at fault. So, he repeatedly told her that after he had committed these horrifying acts on this child, that why do you make me do this to you? I mean, it's absolutely insane. And Governor Tim Walz, again, pardoned this dude. Vang ultimately took a plea deal to plead guilty to the offense of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. The New York Times reports he had served no prison time as a part of the deal. A deal. was made. Vang was pardoned for the offense last month by the Minnesota Board of Pardons, which is made up of the Minnesota Governor, Minnesota Attorney General, and Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court. All pardons must be approved by the Minnesota Governor. Sounds like quite a precedent that they're setting in Minnesota. You know how for several years now they've been trying to demonize the word pedophile and replace it with minor attracted person. You know how they're doing it with the Democrats these days. Quote, Governor Tim Walz's decision to pardon an illegal alien convicted child artist so he can remain in our country is disgusting, said acting DHS Assistant Secretary Lauren Biz. Quote, these are the criminal illegal aliens he and his Minnesota sanctuary politicians are protecting. Tao Lu Vang lost his legal status following his conviction for repeatedly sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl. Following the conviction, he was placed in removal proceedings and issued a final order of removal by a judge. This pardon will take away his child R's qualifying convictions that made him removable from the United States. How do you like that? And there's the picture of the R-worder. The rapist. You know what? I'll just go ahead and say it. This motherfucker's a rapist. And he raped a 10-year-old girl. And the governor of Minnesota just gave him a pardon. Just completely cleansed him of all of his horrific crimes, just allowed to walk free. Meanwhile, here in the state of Florida, we have the ability to sentence this asshole to death if he were to commit a horrific crime like this inside our state. So I guess thankfully for him, he didn't commit that in Florida. We certainly wish, God forbid that would ever happen. Unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in. But if he were here in Florida, we'd be putting this asshole to death. Anyway, I will repost this if you want to read all of the fine print of this document. I'm not exactly sure. Your complaint is a member of the Minnesota Gang Strike Force. It bases this complaint upon his review of the police reports herein and upon his own investigation. So it looks like perhaps police report information. Definitely viewer discretion advised. That probably gets quite graphic. And this is from the Minnesota Clemency Review Commission. So this is the letter that they gave him. Dear Tao Vang, the Minnesota Board of Pardons voted to grant your pardon at this meeting on June 10th of 2026. Congratulations! Exclamation point! We will send an official pardon certificate to you in the coming weeks. I'm sure they'll even fucking frame it for him too. The certificate will be filed with the district courts where you were convicted. A granted pardon sets aside the conviction and purges it from your criminal record. Once the certificate has been signed, you are not required to disclose the conviction at any time or place other than 1, in a judicial proceeding, or 2, during the licensing process for peace officers. Being granted a pardon is a notable achievement and a reflection of the work you have done since your conviction. If you have any questions, please contact us. They give us a number, they give them an email. And sincerely, Carly E. Stark, Executive Director for the Clemency Review Commission. Doesn't that just boil your ever-loving blood? And let me see. I think I might have something else on this. Let's see. Yep, here we go. Homeland Security. We've got them chiming in on this. Governor Tim Walz pardoned an illegal alien child artist. Tao Lu Vang from Laos repeatedly art a 10-year-old child, and Tim Walz's pardon shields him from deportation. This is the type of illegal alien criminal Tim Walz and Minnesota sanctuary politicians are protecting over American citizens.
Department of Homeland Security is accusing Minnesota leaders of shielding an illegal immigrant child predator from deportation. This guy pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl in 2006. He was scheduled for deportation, but last month, Governor Tim Walz gave him a pardon. The DHS acting assistant secretary ripping the Democrats, saying, quote, Governor Tim Walz's decision to pardon an illegal alien convicted child rapist so he can remain in our country is disgusting. These are the criminal illegal aliens he and his Minnesota sanctuary politicians are protecting. Department of Homeland Security is...
I mean, like, serious question. It's not even a rhetorical question. I mean, it basically is, honestly. But why else would they be giving this guy a full pardon for one of the most despicable, horrific crimes that's imaginable? And that's a universally accepted, despicable, horrific crime, to the point where we've got states now that are making it eligible for us to put these people to death for these horrific crimes. I mean, that's how serious this shit is. And like 99% of Americans are not all about this. It's just that little 1% of the psychopaths that exist inside our society, unfortunately. And, well, to be even more frightening, it's probably a little bit over 1% at this point. So from Homeland Security, Governor Tim Walz. Okay, so I'm just double checking to see. All right, I think we basically already got all the information out of this, or out of the last post, that is. But I'll repost that if you want to take a look at the details from that from yesterday with Homeland Security. And let's just move on from that. Libs of TikTok, the U.S. Air Force Major Jason Watson, an active service member, was arrested in D.C. after protesting for Trump's impeachment on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. He was there in full-on uniform and everything. Democrat Rep. Al Green was spotted accompanying Watson before his arrest. It all makes sense now. Of course, it all makes sense. So as soon as I hit play, it's going to immediately go to him giving a speech or whatnot, but you could clearly see Al Green here on the left. That's definitely Al Green, who was there escorting or providing assistance to this man in uniform who is protesting Trump and demanding that he gets impeached and convicted and, you know, all the other whatever buzzwords that he's got on his board. So let's take a look.
The president and vice president must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
Yes!
So they can't really give any justifiable reason. There you go. Impeach, convict, remove. And the rabble seems to be cheering his arrest, apparently. Obviously arrested him. He's in some hot water. Understandably and justifiably so. Okay, so that is that video. I think I got another one. Let's scroll on down to the next one. Eric Doherty, update. Active duty Air Force Major Jason Watson faces mass calls for disciplinary action by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth after, in uniform, he demanded President Trump be removed from office in a demonstration where he got arrested. Calling on his commander-in-chief to be arrested or to be convicted. The stunt is connected to leftist NGOs and Rep. Al Green, which we already saw was there. Bring FAFO Secretary Hegseth, and let's see if there's anything else in this.
The president and vice president must be impeached, convicted, and removed. There are innumerable more impeachable offenses that I could cover. Denying congressional oversight of immigrant detention centers that look increasingly like CCOT. Suing institutions like media, colleges, and law firms for billions of dollars while abusing the authorities of the executive branch agencies to extort settlements. Allowing a mega donor to advertise products on the White House front lawn. Trading pardons for donations.
Is he talking about Elon with Teslas?
Levying illegal tariffs. Weaponizing the Department of Justice against political adversaries while ignoring crimes of supporters and enablers. Attempting to reverse birthright citizenship through executive order. For all of these high crimes and misdemeanors, the president and vice president must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
Listen.
The constitutional impeachment process is our best pathway to restore fidelity to our Constitution. This is why I'm here, standing in solidarity with Representative Green.
Oh, he even called him out by name. Oh, there you go.
Or because I share his policy positions.
Another leftist in the military.
And know next to nothing about his policies. I am here with him because Representative Green is the only member of Congress that has demonstrated the courage and conviction to invoke Rule 9 and force a vote on articles of impeachment.
Well, yeah, it's about all he's good for. He did that a lot in previous years, too.
If Congress followed his example, we could remove the entire Trump administration. But Congress remains unconvinced of the urgency and necessity for them to honor their oaths. So we must persuade them with our unrelenting, uncompromising civil resistance. I am calling on average Americans everywhere to peacefully exercise your First Amendment rights en masse every day until this administration is removed and our democratic republic is restored. I believe in America. I believe in us. If just a nobody like me can take a stand for our Constitution and our democratic republic, then you can too. I hope you will join me in the defense of our republic. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, it surprised me he used the republic word. It's usually a no-no word for the left. Okay, so there he was. He was giving his speech, and then, of course, he was promptly arrested once he went up there on the steps. We've got this from the Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, and this is the official statement from the Air Force. I am aware of recent reports involving an Air Force officer protesting at the United States Capitol. Let me be clear. I expect every airman and guardian to comply with all laws and policies governing personal conduct, political participation, and the wear of the uniform. Americans place their trust in us. We cannot and will not compromise the trust of the nation. Good order and discipline are critical to the DAF's mission, and rigorously maintaining the highest standards of conduct on and off duty are an absolute must for all airmen and guardians. The department takes allegations of misconduct seriously, including any that might undermine the nonpartisan nature of our military. Pursuant to a thorough investigation which will proceed unimpeded, commanders will ensure appropriate disposition when holding service members accountable in accordance with military law and due process. So, it wasn't really the most specific thing, but, trying to keep it as neutral as possible. The full investigation, which is going to proceed unimpeded. So they're going to be looking into that for sure. Look, I don't have any military background personally, so I'm not sure what the process is going to be with his removal, dishonorable discharge, perhaps. I honestly don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening. And in the meantime, we'll just move on to the next thing with U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, who announced a grand jury indictment against Olympian David Hearn for vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Hearn faces up to 10 years in prison for felony destruction of property. And Jeanine Pirro gives a quote here, and more quotes. Okay, let's just hear her say it here in the video.
Today, a grand jury has returned a felony indictment against a defendant, David Hearn, for felony destruction of property, for which he faces 10 years in prison. The indictment is in response to an incident that occurred on June 19th of 2026, in which the defendant Hearn ripped a piece of recently installed sealant on the bottom of the reflecting pool at the Lincoln Memorial. The evidence shows, and we will prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that Hearn willfully destroyed property at the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. This was a deliberate act to damage the reflecting pool at the National Mall that members of the National Park Service actually have worked hard to restore and have witnessed. By Hearn's own admission, on June 19th, he reached down into the pool. Our evidence further shows that the National Park Service employees observed Hearn actually forcefully and violently pulling up and removing the bottom liner with both hands.
Yeah, probably a box cutter.
According to witnesses, Hearn damaged approximately 2 square feet of sealant from the bottom of the pool. A Parks employee actually told Hearn to stop his behavior and stop what he was doing. Hearn reacted by shouting at that Parks employee, saying that she cared too much about the reflecting pool, and why did she even care, since it wasn't her pool.
These people are nuts. Absolutely nuts. Completely crazy. And so CNN, I came across one of the headlines that CNN had displayed with regard to this, and they said that he was arrested for reaching into the pool, period. That's all that it said on the headline. He was arrested, or he was indicted on criminal charges because he reached into the reflecting pool, and they just left it at that because, of course, that's how CNN does their framing. And from In Wokeness, Brockton Mayor Rodriguez, he canceled the July 4th fireworks display for America's 250th. A patriot just confronted him. And we'll hear what this lady has to say in response to this.
I have something to say. You lied to us. You told us we were going to have a big celebration on July 4th here at City Hall, fireworks and everything. You said Chief Nardelli didn't so-called like it, but you were going to have it. And now we're down to a 1-hour social ice cream thing. Flag raising.
Yep. 1 hour.
Unbelievable. 250 years.
Ma'am, I know that that's not the reason why we're here, but I just want to let you know that we were not able to get a fireworks company to produce fireworks for us.
Oh, bullshit.
And we don't want
you really
to do
believe
anything
that?
illegal in this community. So we're going to do the best that we can to celebrate the 4th of July on this plaza.
Oh, and the fireworks are illegal in this community.
Thank you.
Well, that's how they're going to do it. No, it's because they hate this country. That's why. They hate America. They hate Independence Day. So they're going to give them some like bullshit ice cream. That's probably not even real ice cream. It's just like frozen dessert nonsense. And anyway, so that's happening in blue areas, at least one. I'm sure that's happening in others as well. And moving on to RNC research in a rapid-fire round with Hassan Piker, Wisconsin governor candidate Francesca Hong says she supports abolishing ICE. Also, she supports state-run grocery stores, as well as legalizing weed and freeing Palestine, and also a Scott Walker statue for people to deface.
Now we're going to do rapid-fire. Super easy, super simple. Rapid-fire. Do you support repealing Act 10?
Yes.
Universal child care?
Yes.
Free school meals?
Yes.
Guaranteed paid leave?
Yes.
Abolishing ICE?
Yes.
A 1-year data center moratorium?
Yes.
Breaking up Big Ag?
Yes.
Public grocery stores?
Yes.
Right to repair?
Yes.
Legalizing cannabis?
Yes.
Overturning Citizens United?
Yes.
A workers' bill of rights?
Yes.
A free Palestine?
Yes.
A Scott Walker statue that people can go to that are made by local artisans and craftsmen that people can slap up if they want to.
Tentatively, yes.
Okay, I tried to sneak that in there. I was like, oh, we got the momentum, like you're saying yes to everything. Maybe I could catch you. Damn it. Now we're
okay, well, there you go. Well, I will say that I do agree with one thing, right to repair. I'm totally on board with that. Everything else is just absolutely bananas and completely nuts. So, Wisconsin governor candidate. There you go, Wisconsin. I guess that's who you're going to be looking to be electing. And, you know, God forbid, if you live in Wisconsin. Anyway, Brian Hund, libertarian since 1992. He says, see, Genvin, Lar, and Red State for more in-depth reporting on Gavin's rules for the Not For Me activities. So anyway, this is what he's talking about. Mr. Scarlett says, of course, King Gavin's home district is exempt from his authoritarian regime. Hopefully, Huntington Beach will continue to ignore this overreach. New California Governor Steve Hilton will delete this unlawful nonsense designed to punish conservative voting cities. And the headline from Red State reads, Gavin Newsom's $3.7 million estate was gifted to him in 2019. 3 months later, he got a $2.7 million tax-free cash out. Rules for thee and not for me, of course. It's just so funny how they demand that everybody has to pay more taxes, especially the rich. Tax the rich some more. They're not paying enough of their fair share in taxes, but they get all the tax breaks, the ones who are in charge. It's just so funny how that works. Don't miss. Okay, so part two, let's see. Where does it start? Gavin Newsom's $3.7 million, 12,000 square foot mansion on 8+ acres along the American River in Sacramento was the area's most expensive home sale in 2018. The gated estate consists of 6 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms, a guest house, a pool, a tennis court, a wine cave, tons of bullshit. An LLC registered to Newsom's cousin, longtime business partner and co-president of Plump Jack, Jeremy Schreier, paid cash for the estate in December 2018. Newsom's spokesperson, though, claimed in January of 2019 that it was Newsom who paid cash for the home. Puzzling, since Newsom still carried a $3.2 million mortgage on his prior home. So where's all that money coming from? In October 2019, the LLC gifted the home to the Newsoms free and clear, claiming Newsom was a member of the LLC to avoid a $4,000 transfer tax. In January of 2020, the Newsoms received $2.7 million tax-free when they obtained a cash-out refinance. Newsom's financial disclosure forms don't mention the LLC or the gifts, which far exceed the $500 limit. In 2003, Newsom was cited for failing to disclose $11 million in real estate and business loans. One thing that's become extraordinarily clear to Californians in 2020 is that there's one set of rules for Governor Gavin Newsom. There's another set of rules for the rest of us. He preaches that we're all in this together and that we have to sacrifice to meet this moment, yet he's not missing a paycheck. So it looks like that this was written like back in 2020, but this is just coming up with just one of the things that Gavin Newsom preaches that everybody should be doing and paying their fair share, but he's avoiding just that. It's just quite interesting. But that'll be linked below in the description. if you want to go through the details of that article. I just happened across that today. Like I said, wasn't an extremely fast and busy news day today, so I just decided to pull that one. RNC Research, New York City DSA co-chair Gustavo Gordillo talks about their takeover of the Democrat Party. We really prioritized the congressional races this cycle because we knew they would influence how the political establishment orients toward us. They started to adopt some of our platform. A headline from Axios Scoop: Harris reaches out to Mamdani, pro-Palestinian activists, in a run-up to 2028. Kamala Harris privately calls New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani last week and has been holding lengthy closed-door meetings with other prominent progressives, including pro-Palestinian activists. Sounds like I don't know, maybe a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party by the Champagne Socialists, perhaps?
But also, does DSA see a window there to communicate with, to work with a figure like Harris, who angered and outraged so many of your members? Where does that relationship go?
I'll say that we really prioritized the congressional races this cycle because we knew that our performance in these races would become the measure of our power, and it would influence how the political establishment orients toward us. After we won the mayoral race, we saw in New York State figures like Kathy Hochul, who were really, had been aligned with the establishment. They started to adopt some of our platform. We were able to reach a major step toward universal childcare, I think, as a result of that election. And it's not surprising to me that now that we have so many more electoral victories under our belt, that people are trying to learn from that, I hope. But I think it's still too early to say, there were huge mistakes made, I think, in the 2024 presidential race.
They didn't cheat enough, apparently.
Not even allowing a Palestinian to speak at the DNC convention is something that people will not soon forget. So
that would have changed everything.
I think, is always welcome, but it's really seeing if they lead to action.
Well, you really can't take seriously somebody who raises the pitch of their voice every time they roll off a sentence. That's so annoying when people do that, and he's definitely one of them. Paul Sperry, so let's get this straight. Reid Hoffman, a regular at Epstein's R Island, bankrolled Trump, R accuser E. Jean Carroll's lawsuits to the tune of $6.4 million. Remember, it was Hoffman who also funded New Knowledge's disinformation campaign targeting the GOP in the 2017 special Alabama Senate election, imitating Russian influence ops. During their op, New Knowledge authored a SSCI report on Russian disinformation for Democrat Senator Warner to help discredit Trump's 2016 win. After he was busted, Hoffman had to apologize for funding the op. This guy is a piece of work. Reid Hoffman. So, Grok, does all this check out? Just figured to see if I could run this through Grok and see what came out at the other end. But it says most of it does check out, but I guess there's some nuance, at least according to Grok. Hoffman's nonprofit, American Future Republic, gave $7 million, including referenced $6.4 million portion to what was her name? E. Jean Carroll's law firm for the Trump cases. So he did donate millions of dollars to the lawyers for that case. The DOJ is probing that funding. He also visited Epstein's Island once. I mean, look, maybe on the books, he visited once in 2014. Perhaps he probably visited many more times than that, but one time is one time too many. With regret noted later, of course he apologized for it, not a regular. He funded AET, which backed New Knowledge's Project Birmingham, a 2017 Alabama Senate disinformation op, mimicking Russian tactics to help Jones beat Moore. Hoffman apologized after the exposure, probably with his fingers crossed behind his back, probably just snickering and making the, yeah, I apologize, so saying he didn't direct it. So he's still involved with it, probably funded a lot of it. And New Knowledge helped author and contribute to the SSCI Russian disinformation report around the same time. Core facts on the funding: the Alabama op are substantiated. Regular at the island, personal versus nonprofit details are overstated. Well, I guess that's what you say, but other people definitely suggest otherwise. He was a lot more involved than at least what it says. Anyway, let's go to End Wokeness. Atlanta spent $130 million to build glass walls for fare evasion prevention. And this is the result of all of that money. Worked out so well. Hey, at least it's safety glass. At least they didn't get injured when they busted their way right through it, and they got on the fare avoiding, like, what, $2, $3, however much it would have cost to just simply pay your fare. And yeah, I don't know why they would have constructed that out of glass. That was really stupid of them to do. But they did. $130 million worth. And from Eric Doherty just in, Senate Republicans reveal Congressional Democrats are plotting to shut down the government again ahead of the 2026 midterms, which we've been saying that all year, that they're going to do exactly that. This is no surprise to anybody who's been following along. So nuke the filibuster then. Senate GOP, Senate Democrats are preparing to shut down the government once again. The new Marxist wing of their party demands it. They're going to use it to try to win votes, and we must stop it from happening. No filibuster for shutdowns equals they lose. Although, look, honestly, I don't see how that does help Democrats. Of course, what they're going to do, they're going to introduce some ridiculous legislation that they know is going to be a non-starter for Republicans. The Republicans are going to say no, and then they're going to platform on that, like last year with the Obamacare subsidies. Maybe they're probably just going to use the same thing again. They're just going to recycle it, even though it didn't ultimately play out for them. But last year wasn't an election year like it is this year. So perhaps they're going to do the same thing. We must pass the Obamacare subsidies. People lost their health care. It's so expensive. I mean, that's just how they're going to do it. They're going to try to put something through. It's going to be a non-starter like it was last year, and then they're going to blame Republicans for shutting down the government. That's basically what they're going to do. I'm not so sure if it's really going to work out this time, if they're going to try to replay that exact same movie all over again.
Let me just point out, if I might, that we are 29 days into a Democrat shutdown.
Okay, so this was last year,
so
I don't think we're going to watch all this.
SNAP recipients shouldn't go without food.
All right, whatever. If you're interested in watching the video, I'm just not going to play because this isn't new. That was my fault. I didn't notice the 2025 up in the top left corner. But I'll repost it. There's a direct link to my profile below in the description. It'll take you straight to that video. And let's move on to Anna Paulina Luna, the current state of affairs in the Senate. So let's hear what she says about that.
Tell me what the hell is wrong with Thune? What? People ask me all the time, why won't they do it? What?
The guy that was just in the last video.
What are they gaining
Leader John
by
Thune.
not doing it, other than just continuing to play the game?
You know, John Thune's GOP went to censure him. Then they said, well, if we censure him, it's going to give the Democrats a win. I would argue that, you know, when you have someone that's failing to deliver on one of the promises that the Republican Party made to the American people, then that's a failure in itself. And when you in the military, you learn when you have poor leadership, you don't blame the enlisted. You take responsibility as a commanding officer.
Correct.
So where is the responsibility taking of the Senate? Then you have these other members that don't care. So this idea in the Senate is, and you can see it, they were more concerned about putting the automatic win for some of the lawsuits that they had for their cases than they were debating Save America. They're more concerned about dog parades than Save America. They all went on recess and vacation, and then they're attacking Mike Lee behind closed doors and Senator Scott because he's fighting. I don't care. I don't want to be in Senate. And what I will tell you is part of the freeing part of, I think, my mentality in this is that I don't care if I'm here for 10 years or not.
So
I can do what's right and necessary.
So let me tell you something. When you actually don't care, because that's what terrified people when I was at the network level. That terrified them.
I'm sure.
Because I didn't care if I was on Fox for another day or CNN. It didn't matter to me. I don't care. When you actually can say, I don't care, and people believe you, the power that comes with that is remarkable, because people don't know what to do with you. There's no way to intimidate you. You're like, go ahead. I don't care.
Yeah, well, you know, fair point. And look, whether she cares about being around for 10 years or not, she's got my vote for this coming election because she represents my district, Anna Paulina Luna. And just one note on this flag. You notice all the wrinkles on these flags. There's a lot of podcasters, a lot of YouTubers, and Glenn Beck included, who put up the 250 flag, and they've got the creases on it. Why not just throw the flag into the dryer for 5 minutes with a damp washcloth? It would take the wrinkles right out of the flag. I mean, all I'm saying. But anyway, Red State, more new poll data on Senate races that doesn't look good for Democrats. And I just shared the other day on Polymarket that Republicans are 58% in favor of retaining the Senate after the midterms. Not a guarantee that they will, but it's looking favorable now. Whereas some weeks back that they weren't. It was actually flipped the other way around. More new poll data on Senate races. Doesn't look good for Dems. We just reported on a new poll that has things not looking good for the Democrat candidate for the main Senate seat, Graham Plattner. He's now trailing, according to a Fox poll. And this is before even more things that may come out in a couple of weeks. Democrats are going to freak out when they hear this news. Look, a Fox poll, I mean, I don't know, man. I'd probably take that with a kind of a grain of salt, just in my opinion. But that isn't the only issue that they have when it comes to the Senate. As CNN senior data analyst Harry Enton explained on Wednesday, the Democrats have a serious math problem. And this is his X post that he... When did you post this? Yesterday at 11 o'clock. Right now, Dems have a math problem in taking back the Senate. They need a net pickup of 4 seats and lead in 1 GOP held seat in North Carolina. Rest are ties or GOP ahead. The problem is the fundamentals. Median of key 6 states. The GOP with +6 on the generic ballot. 53% say the Democrat Party is too far left.
Okay, so what's the simple math here? Democrats need a net gain of 4 Senate seats to regain control of the upper chamber in Congress. And right now, the math, simply put, isn't there for them. That is the picture. And I want you, it's just, you know, it's a math problem. It is a math problem. 2026 Senate poll margins. Okay, Democrats need a net gain of 4.
There's a tie in Texas.
Okay, you get 1 in North Carolina.
No way.
But then you got a bunch of red on the screen. Now, these are close races, but you got a tie in Texas. Then it's +2 in Iowa for the Republicans, +2 in Alaska, and then +3, if we can make the circle there, in Ohio.
James Talarico
so that
in
gets
Texas,
you
right?
1 seat.
Absolutely
But
lunatic,
of course,
man.
you need 4 seats. And on this board, red, close races, and a tie. You're at 1. You're not yet to 4.
I mean, the good news for Democrats might be they're close in Texas, Iowa, Alaska, and Ohio. But again, it needs to be 4 of these that are blue in order for them to retake it. Now, there's one state that you did not put up here.
No.
That's Maine.
That is Maine. Maine, which we've had a few Senate polls the last couple of days. And what do you see here? Even in Maine, a state that Kamala Harris easily won back in 2024. Look, the New York Times has Plattner ahead by 2, but that, of course, is well within the margin of error. That is among likely voters. Fox News, on the other hand, has Susan Collins, the incumbent, up by 3 among all voters. So even in Maine, you have a race that, simply put, is way too close to call. So really, on the mathematical march to 4 seats, there's really only 1 seat at this point that Democrats can look like they can count on. They'll probably win one of these other seats. But again, that gets you only to 2, and you need 4.
Yeah, you might think the Democrats would hope that they look better given the war in Iran, given inflationary concerns. The question is this their high water mark, or can they grow from here? They will need to grow. What are some of the reasons why they might be having a little bit of a harder time?
The real reason why they're having a little bit of a harder time is these are red states, right? With the exception of Maine, right? These were all states that Donald Trump won back in 2024. And look at this. The median in the 6 key Senate races, look at this. The generic Senate ballot lead for Republicans, look at that. In the median state is 6 points. And of course, the median right down the middle is what, 3.5, right? So you need to win states in which the generic Senate ballot lead is Republican +6, and then say the Dem Party is too far to the left. Look at this, 53%. So these are states that are just very hard to win, because bottom line is what is holding them back.
It's hilarious.
What
It's
is
only
holding them back is the
53%.
fundamentals. And when you put it all together, Johnny,
give us the
and
real
you
number.
look at the prediction markets, which I think really can sort of put this all together, chance to win the Senate. The Republican chances, as you noted, John, the environment is getting a little bit better for Republicans. On May 1, Republicans had a 51% chance to take back the Senate. Now it's a 59% chance.
now.
Look, Democrats have a shot
58%
here.
the other
There
day.
are seats on the table, but the fundamentals are against them. And that right now, they're only one of the seats where they need to be. The mathematical problem is there for Democrats at this point. They simply put have a statistical math problem.
All right, we will see what happens in the days to come, Harry, and thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. Well, I'm not extremely knowledgeable when it comes to Senate. I'm not very knowledgeable at all. I mean, like, I know the basics on how it works and everything, but senator for senator with the whole, like, 2 senators per state, it just really surprises me that it's so razor thin in the Senate, given how much geographical area that Republicans control in the country, and how it's not 50-50, but it's pretty damn close, and it has been for a while. That's just always surprised me for some reason, that it's just always been that close. You'd think that the Republicans would have, like, had a commanding lead in the Senate for the longest, but nope, that's not. The Democrats need a net gain of 4 seats to take control of the Senate. The problem, the math isn't working. Okay, so we basically don't have to read through all this since we just saw that 3-minute video, because it's basically going to cover all of that regardless. So there you go. There's an update on the Senate races, looking better for Republicans. And from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, ICE surges enforcement, makes 10 3,000 arrests in just 5 days amid the Supreme Court birthright citizenship decision. They weren't messing around, man. Tom Homan, he said that's exactly what they were going to do. Oh, well, I mean, if the Supreme Court's going to make that decision, we just have to ramp up the enforcement, and ramping up they did. Quote, the DHS says nearly 70% of ICE arrests involve illegal immigrants previously charged or convicted of a crime. So there you go. Previously charged or convicted, 70%. So it's still the overwhelming majority of arrests that they're making. And this is on foxnews.com, of course. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is ramping up arrests as the Supreme Court ruling on birthright citizenship delivered a blow to the Trump administration's efforts to curb immigration policy. I mean, some would say that they delivered a blow to the entire country. Fox News Digital obtained figures from a Department of Homeland Security source that showed more than 10,000 arrests have been made in the last 5 days alone. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court rejected President Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship, upholding the long-standing policy that most children who are born in the U.S. will automatically become citizens, even if the child's parents are living in the country illegally. And a source familiar with ICE operations said the agency is currently ramping up operations using funds from the One Big Beautiful Bill as the passage of the legislation nears its 1-year anniversary. The court cited the 14th Amendment of the Constitution as the basis for the decision, saying children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause. Trump punched back at the ruling, urging Congress to amend the Constitution to pave a path to abolishing birthright citizenship. Yeah, good luck with that, which is highly hyper-polarized as we are. And if it stays that way for the foreseeable future, I don't think they're going to amend the Constitution, probably for the rest of my lifetime at least, for the next like 50 years. No long and unwieldy constitutional amendment is necessary. Okay, well, he's also saying that, on the other hand, Congress should start today to work on ending expensive and unfair to our country birthright citizenship. Trump posted on Truth, "We will have my complete and total support. As ICE seeks to increase arrests, agitators have been mobilizing across the country, as they do. All these, the nonprofits funding all of these peaceful protesters, demanding better living conditions for those detained in federal facilities and calling for reforms to ICE operational protocols." They're not really calling for reforms. They're calling for the abolishment of ICE, actually. In late May, agitators flooded the Delaney Hall ICE facility in Newark, New Jersey, in a violent clash between rioters and ICE agents alongside local law enforcement officers. Isn't that funny how that protest just raged on for a period of time, then all of a sudden just disappeared like a fart in the wind, just out of nowhere, just moving on. I'm sure that they're probably gearing up for the next ICE facility. A Fox investigation based on reporting from the ground in Newark in recent Signal group chats, a number of tax filing strategy documents and social media posts found that the protests outside Delaney Hall were not a spontaneous grassroots uprising. Instead, they were the product of years of coordinated planning by a network of well-funded, highly organized groups. I mean, that's how the left does it, that use a local controversy as a platform to challenge federal immigration policies and, more broadly, the United States. Those are the games they play. The network behind the Delaney Hall protests includes about 100 groups, 100 different groups. Some of them big names like the ACLU and Indivisible and Democratic Socialists of America. Together, these organizations report collective annual revenues of about $825 million. That's per year. Approximately equal to the annual budget of the entire city of Newark, New Jersey. Crying out loud, man. So that's how much funding that they have with all of these protests and the riots and the violence and the uprising, as they like to call it. They've got hundreds of millions of dollars behind them, and obviously gets replenished annually. Despite the organized resistance, ICE operations continued, and DHS Assistant Secretary Lauren Biz said in a statement that a majority of arrests involve illegal migrants who have previously been charged or convicted of a crime. Quote, "Since day one, DHS law enforcement has been delivering on President Trump's promise to the American people to arrest and deport criminal illegal aliens, including murderers, R-worders, pedos, gang members, and terrorists." Biz explained. Nearly 70% of ICE arrests are of illegal aliens charged or convicted of a crime in the U.S. More than 3 million illegal aliens are out of the country and counting. Our message is clear. If you come to our country illegally, we'll find you, we'll arrest you, and we'll deport you. That's been the talking points from ICE and from the leaders of DHS for quite some time. Understandably so. From Eric Doherty breaking, the Trump administration is actively moving to surge worksite immigration enforcement raids. and that is per CNN. This comes after just this week, multiple plants in Alabama were raided and illegals were swooped up. Yeah, just the last 5 days, 10,000. Tom Homan recently will put more agents in the field. You're going to see arrests go up. You're going to see more worksite enforcement operations coming. And recently, about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he said that they're going to ramp up enforcement in New York City. So I'm not sure if they've actually started that or not, but I guess to be continued. Look forward to that.
I mean, the president's already set the priorities on immigration enforcement. We're going. First of all, we got the most secure border in the history of this nation. Well, that provides more resources for
April, by the way.
Enforcement
April
operations,
2026,
which we plan on doing. We're doing it now. And of course, we've been sidelined just a little bit with the airports. President put me in charge of the airport. I said the airports, and that's worked out very well. But as that ramps down now, we'll put more agents in the field. You're going to see arrests go up. You're going to see more worksite enforcement operations coming. So you're going to see a ramp up in immigration enforcement in this country. That's what the American people voted for, and that's what the President Trump's going to give them.
All right, well, like I said, Independence Day is right around the corner, so they're recycling videos from the past. From Libs of TikTok, breaking ICE arrested 10,000 illegals in the last 5 days alone and are planning on seriously ramping up arrests per DHS. If you're here illegally, your days in our country are numbered. So this is Biden's border against Trump's border. So let's see which one looks against the other. How you like that? Which one would you prefer? Rhetorical question. You can leave a comment if you want. By the tens of millions. This, by the way, was every day. If you weren't following the news during the Biden administration. I mean, pick any day of the year between 2021 and 2024, you would get this video. Thousands and thousands, some days over 10,000 per day were streaming across the border. They just let them all in. From Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, the June jobs report showed that the foreign-born labor force has fallen sharply over the past year, a sign that President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration is reshaping the composition of the U.S. labor market. And from 10 hours ago, Trump effect, the U.S. workforce is becoming more American. So on the other side, the Democrats are saying that it was an abysmal jobs report that just came out. It was the worst. Trump's doing a terrible job, and so on and so on. So, Grok, was the overall jobs numbers report good in May and June? So according to Grok, not officially official, but the June jobs report, plus 57,000 non-farm payrolls. Missed 115,000 were expected. Unemployment ticked to about 4.2%. The May number was revised down sharply to plus 129,000, which was at 172,000. April also lowered by 31,000. Combined prior months, minus 74K. Labor force participation fell to 61.5%. The sharp drop in foreign-born employment household survey contributed to softer overall hiring. Mixed and low unemployment, but clear cooling and downward revisions signal decelerating momentum. So I had a feeling they were going to revise the jobs numbers down, because I remember that when they reported the 172,000. I mean, of course, the Trump administration, Republicans were championing it, the greatest jobs numbers that we've seen in a very long time. But they did revise it down. But look, still, at the end of the day, it's well over 100,000. I mean, you can't really say that that's a terrible number. That's still an astronomically incredible number for the month of, May, month of May. So still a hell of a number at the end of the day. But that's just how they do these things, man. They come out with the jobs report, and then about a month goes by, and then they revise it down. I don't know why they don't just wait, why they just gotta, release it as soon as humanly possible, even though that it's generally not an accurate number, but that's just how they do it. So let's see what this says. Trump effect, U.S. workforce is becoming more American. This is gonna be on Breitbart. And it starts right here. The June jobs report showed that the foreign-born labor force has fallen sharply over the past year, a sign that President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration is reshaping the composition of the U.S. labor market. Well, plus, not to mention, it's illegal to hire illegal immigrants, and they're supposed to be using the E-Verify system, which obviously a lot of companies aren't doing. But they can be fined, I believe, for every illegal immigrant that they have employed, and I'm pretty sure that fine can be applied to them day by day that they have them employed. So maybe they're cracking down against companies with regard to the fines and all that too, and maybe that's why Companies are finally a little more reluctant to hire illegal immigrants. The number of foreign-born people in the labor force fell by 700,000 from June of last year, dropping from 32.6 million to 31.9 million, according to data released Thursday by the Department of Labor. You know, when you take a number like that, 31.9 million people working in the American workforce who are foreign-born. Then you got people on the left who are screaming that they can't find a job when they're fresh out of college and they're complaining about it. But when you throw a number like that at them, it's just falling on deaf ears. The foreign-born civilian population fell by 571,000 from 49.1 million to 48.6 million. Almost 50 million foreign-born civilians in the country. I think the number is actually much higher than that. It's probably like 80 or 90 million. That marks a significant reversal from the labor market of recent years, when a surge of immigration under the Biden administration rapidly expanded the foreign-born workforce. The latest numbers suggest that the Trump administration's border and enforcement policies are now beginning to unwind that shift. The sex breakdown makes the shift even more striking. The number of foreign-born men in the civilian population plunged by 1.14 million over the year. Well, if you look during the Biden era, when you're watching all those border crossings, the overwhelming majority of them were military-aged men. So it kind of makes sense that the number would be that staggering. The foreign-born male labor force fell by 970,000, and the foreign-born male employment dropped by 812,000. Foreign-born women moved in the opposite direction. The civilian population rose by 568,000. Their labor force increased by 271,000, and employment rose by 305,000. This suggests that Trump's immigration crackdown may be having less impact on female-heavy service sectors, such as childcare and healthcare, than on sectors more dependent on foreign-born men. Yeah, I suppose so. The native-born labor force also declined over the past year, falling by 445,000 to 138.3 million, largely reflecting older Americans retiring. Well, plus our population's in decline too, which is an alarming problem that's not getting very much attention at all. But the underlying population trend moved in the opposite direction. The native-born civilian population increased by more than 2.1 million. Well, I guess if it's still increasing, that's a good thing. Although what I keep reading is that people are just not having kids like they were. Like the rate at which that Americans are having kids is dropping sharply, and it's all over the West. It's not just here. It's also in the UK. It's in France, especially in South Korea. I think South Korea is the worst. I think their replacement rate is like 1.3 or something like that. And you need, I believe it's 2, right? I think it's 2.0 that the population rate has to be just steady. With your population growth, you're not losing, you're not gaining, you're just holding steady. And with them being all the way down to like 1.2, 1.3, that's insane, man. Employment followed the same pattern. Native-born male employment declined by 962,000, while native-born female employment rose by 308,000. Which, yeah, maybe retirements, maybe that might be a reason for it to be declining like that, like the baby boomers or what have you. Although with the talks of AI and the bubble possibly popping, and that might have a drastic effect on the stock market and specifically 401ks. You know, you might see a rapid reversal of that if that actually ends up happening later this year, but I guess we'll have to see. The overall result is a labor market that is becoming more native-born, even as total labor force growth weakens. The foreign-born share of the labor force fell from roughly 19% in June of last year to 18.7% in June of this year. That is a positive development for American workers. For years, businesses benefited from a large inflow of foreign labor, especially men, that expanded the available workforce, reduced pressure to compete for workers already here, and helped sustain lower wage business models. Now that process is going into reverse. Employers will have to rely more heavily on Americans already in the country, pay more attention to retention, and invest more in productivity rather than simply drawing on a growing pool of imported labor. That should be music to everybody's ears who's in the labor force, especially if you're in a job that you actually like. The Department of Labor data do not make distinctions between illegal immigrants, recent immigrants, temporary visa holders, longer-term legal immigrants, and naturalized citizens. All are grouped as foreign-born. It's likely that the declines in the foreign-born labor force population or ranks of the employed have been driven by the exit of illegal immigrants, of course, and the halting of new unauthorized arrivals. The unemployment rate fell to 4.2% in June, a sign that fewer workers in the U.S. who want to work are out of a job. The foreign-born unemployment rate, which is not seasonally adjusted, has plunged to 3.6% due to a decline in the participation rate, the share of the population who is actively involved in the labor force. So there you go, man. Lots of good news happening as far as the labor force goes. And let's see what else we got. Let's move on to the next post. So we can get back to it. There we go. And another one from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. President Trump, the Supreme Court slaughter decision more than made up for disappointing birthright citizenship ruling. So I guess we'll get some info from this same website. President Trump told Breitbart in an exclusive Oval Office interview on Tuesday evening that while he's disappointed about the Supreme Court's ruling upholding birthright citizenship, the court's decision in the Trump versus Slaughter case, which once again grants the president the power to fire independent agency employees at will, more than made up for it. Breitbart News' interview with the president came just hours after the Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, 5-4 decision, Trump versus Barber case. The president has long maintained that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional and even attended oral arguments in the case in April at the Supreme Court. The Slaughter case came about after the president fired former Federal Trade Commission Commissioner Rebecca Kelly Slaughter without cause. Slaughter then sued the president, arguing the firing was unconstitutional under the FTC Act, which stated that employees of independent agencies may be removed only for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. The ruling grants the president the power to fire members of the FTC or other independent agencies without a reason. Quote, it was a disappointing decision, but I think it was, from my personal standpoint, more than made up for by the Slaughter decision, because that was one that was going on for almost 100 years, where they took power away from FDR, and presidents have tried to regain that power for many, many years. Trump told Breitbart. If you remember, Taft had the power and they took it away during FDR, and it's been almost 100 years, close to 100 years, and everybody's been trying to regain that power because it was the right thing. It was the correct decision. But a lot of people didn't know how that was going to go. And then that one I won at 6-3. That was a big one. It was a very big win, he added. The president noted, as many news outlets have pointed out, that the Slaughter ruling is the most impactful of the term. Quote, you see, it was the biggest story, bigger than birthright, and I think probably it's considered bigger than birthright, and that was a win. I'm disappointed about birthright. I think it's ridiculous. We're the only country that does it. It's very expensive, and a lot of bad things can happen, he said. So anyway, it goes on for a bit longer, so I'll just have this reposted, and then we could go ahead and move on to the next topic. So at least President Trump's pretty happy with the Slaughter decision, understandably so. Kush Desai says, reminder, oh, by the way, he is the special assistant to the president and White House senior deputy press secretary. He says, reminder, Chuck Schumer openly admitted that hospital special interest groups effectively have veto power over healthcare policymaking when Democrats are in power. The only special interest President Trump cares about is the best interest of the American people. For the AP, Trump administration proposes a rule it says could save Medicare patients $1.1 billion on drugs. And from Notice, White House proposes cutting hospital payments for scans. Hospitals would no longer be able to collect bigger Medicare payments than doctors do for routine scans like ultrasounds and MRIs. And I think that's absolutely the case, or that should be the case, because like if you're getting an MRI, whether if you're in the emergency room or if you're going to get it scheduled at a doctor's office, it really shouldn't be that substantially more expensive going to the hospital, but it is. It'll cost like $7, $8, $9, probably sometimes $10,000 to have it done in the ER because it wasn't scheduled ahead of time, and it's being used as somewhat of a convenience because you're in the emergency room, so they're going to put you through all the scans, so they think they could just charge you this insane premium, and they do, and they have been for a really long time. So that'll be good if they can finally put an end to that. Bob Herman, hospital CEOs are currently testifying in front of Congress. AHA Hospitals just held its annual meeting, and Daniel Payne caught this extremely candid quote from Chuck Schumer showing just how much lobbying power hospitals have. And he gives a link to Stat News. Let me just see what it looks like. Okay, so maybe we'll go back to that. And it says here, potent quotable, my colleague Daniel Payne was at the American Hospital Association's annual meeting last week, and he caught a remarkably candid moment that encapsulates just how much lobbying power hospitals have, especially with Democrats. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer assured hospitals they, quote, will not be forgotten, end quote, if Democrats win back Congress after the midterm elections, and that hospitals will, quote, have a seat at the table here in Washington, end quote. But the real cherry on top was Schumer revealing how hospitals, the biggest part of the healthcare economy with near unbridled pricing power, dictate the party's health policy agenda. Quote, "I've always consulted Rick," and then in brackets it says Polak, outgoing AHA CEO, in close bracket, and the AHA and the healthcare industry before making any changes because you know the best of all, Schumer said. You give us the best advice. So there you go. And it seems to make pretty good sense that hospitals are able to charge hyperinflated prices, which was made far worse under Obamacare, which of course it did. You know, essentially just charge them whatever the hell they want, and they pay up every single time. It's honestly surprising to me that insurance companies don't push back much harder against that, but they don't. Except these days, they just outright deny claims. What is it like? United Healthcare, isn't their denial rate like up to like 30% or 35% of all claims, which is just absolutely insane. So anyway, U.S. Department of Energy. Moving on to the next thing. The Trump administration moves to permanently end green new scam appliance mandates. I have a feeling that New York City is probably going to be mentioned here because they've gone absolutely just bizarre and crazy up there too. The U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright today announced the Department of Energy has issued a notice to proposed rulemaking to permanently end home appliance and equipment mandates that raise costs and disrupt consumer choice. Yeah, it's your house, it's your appliances. And you know what? If your appliance is either old or if it consumes more energy than somebody else's brand new model, then who gives a shit? You're the one that's paying the utilities, trying to, encroach into our daily private lives with all this green nonsense. So anyway, where was I? Including air conditioning units, gas stoves, washers and drying machines, water heaters, refrigerators, and other products Americans rely on every day in accordance with President Trump's executive order unleashing prosperity through deregulation. The proposal will preserve consumer choice and lower costs. And quote, in America, you should be able to choose a dryer that dries clothes on the first try rather than one that takes multiple cycles. Unfortunately, past administrations thought otherwise, Secretary Wright said. For too long, the American people paid the price for mandates that restricted consumer choice and drove up costs. President Trump promised to end this nonsense, and that is exactly what we are doing. The proposed rule will preserve the American people's ability to choose home appliances and equipment that actually work at prices that they can afford. It's called common sense. From day one, the Trump administration has offered relief to consumers, businesses, and industries through bold deregulatory action, said Assistant Secretary of Energy Audrey Robertson. This proposal is about the future. It will ensure that new regulations promote affordability, preserve consumer choice, and meet the highest standards for transparency and due diligence. For further details, read the full text of the notice to proposed rulemaking, and I will have this linked also so you can visit this. Comments will be accepted for 30 days after publication in the Federal Register. The DOE also issued a request for information seeking public input on the methodologies used in developing energy conservation standards for covered products and equipment. Comments will be accepted for 60 days after publication in the Federal Register. Under the leadership of President Trump, today's actions build on the Trump administration's commitment to remove burdensome regulations that raise prices, reduce consumer choice, and frustrate the American people. So I'll give that a repost, and you can visit it on my profile, or you can go to U.S. Department of Energy. Very easy, @energy. You could read it there, or click on the links that they provided in that article. And speaking of which, Secretary Chris Wright, who's the Secretary of Energy, he says, as we approach peak electricity demand in the 13-state mid-Atlantic region at 7 a.m. this morning, less than 6% of electricity generation was coming from renewables. Over 91% of generation is coming from gas, nuclear, and coal, keeping our air conditioners blasting. And there you have it, PJM generation fuel mix around 7 o'clock this morning, July 2nd, today. And the pie chart, coal, gas, hydro, multiple fuels, nuclear, oil, other renewables, solar, wind, the renewables and solar just being in that little sliver. And the vast majority is coming from reliable energy. Nuclear, gas, and coal, more than 91%. Renewables, less than 6%. All right. Stay cool. Staying cool out there. Ambassador Mike Huckabee says 1,000 days ago, Hamas monsters stormed out of Gaza into Israel and massacred 1,200 men, women, and children, butchering them viciously, taking 251 people hostage. We should never forget the victims and should keep asking, how did such a thing happen? So just pointing out the fact that it's been exactly 1,000 days as of today, July the 2nd. It was an absolute horrible, horrifying incident that happened, and it went on for far too long. It's just absolutely just insane, despicable, crazy, ridiculous. Ambassador Mike Walz, Iran will not silence us on our own soil. That might work in Tehran, but not in the UN Security Council. We will tell the truth. See where this goes.
Unfortunately, the representative of the regime started his remarks today by saying, apparently, this council should not meet, should not speak. Let me remind you where you are. This is not Tehran. This is the United States of America. This is the United Nations Security Council.
Fight!
You will not silence this body.
No.
The representative goes on to say that the ambassador from Bahrain, the foreign minister, myself, and other members of this body are full of lies, that we're lying. Let me ask you, what here is a lie? Who's lying here? Is this Arab family in Bahrain in a residential neighborhood whose home was destroyed by an Iranian Shahed drone? Are they lying? Crown Plaza Hotel,
of course, you're going to say that wasn't us.
Are they lying? First responders whose headquarters was struck deliberately so that they couldn't put out fires.
Wow.
Are they lying?
Well, that's sadistic.
Is this hypocrisy? Is this what this council is here to denounce today? I asked the representative, are these lies? Are these photographs? Are these lies? I'd say not.
Wow, man, right in their face, too, man. And I got another one. We got another one from Ambassador Mike Walz. I cannot stress enough the possibility of real, transformative, positive opportunity for the nation and people of Iran is on the table, but President Trump's patience is not unlimited. The world cannot continue to suffer, and Iran must abide by its obligations to this council that this council voted for without opposition, and the world must hold this regime to account.
I cannot stress enough the possibility of real, transformative, positive opportunity for the nation and people of Iran is on the table. But President Trump's patience is not unlimited. The world cannot continue to suffer, and Iran must abide by its obligations to this council that this council voted for without opposition. And the world must hold this regime to account, I think.
Okay, well, we didn't get anything new out of that word for word in the post. If it was all in quotes, I would have skipped reading that, of course. But, sometimes it just goes that way. Anyway, from Breaking 911, watch on full. Russia launched a massive overnight missile and drone attack on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Let's have a look at this. We're not going to have a chance to watch all of it, but this is 8 minutes long. And it looks like there is sound, even though it's quiet. I'll crank it up a bit. Hopefully it doesn't get too crazy. I did finally put in a limiter for the sound with my browser, so hopefully we won't be blowing out any more eardrums. Good grief, man. Cut the music. So it would seem that this is just going to continue for 8 straight minutes. Just the highlights of what happened that night, which I'm assuming was last night. Massive fire. Maybe a power plant, maybe a substation or something. We still got power, though. You imagine so many people are so ungrateful to be living in America, where we have 2 oceans separating us from the rest of the world. Let's try to go living out there for a while. No, thank you. Definitely feel for these civilians, for sure. Look, man, the sun's coming up and they're still firing. What are we getting on the ground? What happened there? Wow. Holy shit, man. It's a hell of a plume. Okay, I'll repost that as well. So couldn't play all 8 minutes of it, but I think we got the point. A lot of bombing, a lot of missiles dropping on Kiev overnight by the Russians. And from the U.S. Department of Justice from 8 hours ago, U.S. Attorney Andrew Botros and ATF Director Robert Cicada announced the results of Operation New Dawn. 179 defendants across 140 cases. 305 fugitives have been apprehended and 24 kids are reunited with their families and parents. 11 agencies participated as part of this first-of-its-kind badgeless enforcement initiative in Chicagoland in recognition of our nation's 250th birthday that focused on a single mission for roughly 60 days to set aside barriers and focus exclusively on disrupting violence in Chicago and Rockford areas by arresting the worst of the worst offenders who would then face federal criminal prosecution. Incredible work by all the agencies that are listed here. You can read more at justice.gov. And it appears that we've got a press conference, so I'm going to skip the article. It will still be linked in the description. And this is a bit of a long one, so like I usually do it, I'll play the first few minutes, kind of see where it goes. And regardless, I'll repost it. So let's have a look. And a listen. They're playing a video. Probably something I've already played here on the Swamp, frankly.
Stand alongside the leadership of our federal law enforcement partners in the Northern District of Illinois to announce the results of a historic anti-violence initiative that has never before been done in our district. In addition, I want to personally thank Director Robert Cicada, who is the director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, who flew in from Washington, D.C. to Chicago to jointly announce the tremendous results of Operation New Dawn. Thank you, Mr. Director, for your strong leadership and for being here to give support for this historic event. It means a lot to me and to everyone else who's gathered here on this podium. As virtually every Chicagoan will tell you, violence is unacceptably high in many neighborhoods of this great American city.
It's been for years, man. Chirac.
Assaults, robberies, kidnappings, and shootings occur all too frequently. Many citizens, including children, live in a state of fear. Fear that they and that their kids can't play outside on a beautiful summer day. Fear that they can't go out to dinner before or after the theater, or can't go shopping in one of our incredible commercial districts, or can't walk to the train from work late at night, or can't attend a basketball game in the neighborhood without it being interrupted by violence. That is why today I am pleased to present some good news. A new dawn of crime fighting is underway in Chicago, and it began here on April 7 of 2025 when I became the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Since then, I have worked day and night, literally, and weekends and holidays, literally, to keep the citizens of Northern Illinois safe. And I will say that many in my office and across the Chicago federal law enforcement apparatus are also tirelessly working to do the same. 60 days ago, I assembled Chicago's entire federal anti-violence apparatus and asked them to focus on a single mission: to set aside the barriers and disrupt violence in the Chicago and Rockford areas by arresting the worst of the worst offenders who would then face federal criminal prosecution. I call this unprecedented anti-violence initiative Operation New Dawn. When I constructed Operation New Dawn, I created an innovative federal law enforcement approach to fighting violent crime that had not been done before here in Chicago. 11 federal agencies worked arm in arm as one cohesive, unified group to arrest dangerous criminals responsible for some of the most serious offenses, including robberies, kidnappings leading to death, firearms trafficking, firearm offenses, drug trafficking, immigration violations, child exploitation, and various other federal violent crimes.
Okay, well, we got some of the charges, some of what they're accused of committing, and like I said, I will give this a repost. There's a link in the description to my profile. Also, U.S. Attorney's Office, you can go to NDIL News, and you can find it there. The timestamp is going to be 2:07 p.m. today. If you want to watch the entirety. And we did get the numbers. The 179 defendants, 305 fugitives, and 24 kids reunited with their families. So definitely good news. Some real movement. And I don't know if they kept it a secret or not. He kind of alluded to that it was something that they've been conducting since, I believe he said April of last year when he became the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District. And National Fraud Enforcement Division, 2 defendants charged with multi-million-dollar healthcare fraud scheme. We got another one. Defendants allegedly billed Medicaid for ambulance services to medical appointments that were not performed or were induced by kickbacks. Joseph Nocella Jr., United States Attorney for EDNY. U.S. Attorney for EDNY, Eastern District of New York. Eastern District of New York. Also, Naomi Gruchadz, Special Agent in Charge, and then all the other officials who participated in this. That's basically what they're all listing out from justice.gov. 2 defendants charged multi-million-dollar healthcare fraud scheme. An indictment was filed yesterday in federal court in Central Islip, charging Saeed Aziz and Zabed Chowdhury, also known as Jared, with conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States and pay healthcare kickbacks, paying healthcare kickbacks, and money laundering conspiracy. The defendants allegedly offered and paid healthcare kickbacks and submitted fraudulent claims to Medicaid for ambulance services to medical appointments that were not performed, or the costs were artificially inflated. The defendants were previously charged by complaint and will be arraigned at a later date. And of course, just like in the post, they named all of the officials who were in charge of the investigation. As alleged, the defendants turned a transportation program intended to provide vulnerable Medicaid beneficiaries with access to critical medical care into a vehicle for personal enrichment, stated United States Attorney Nocella. By paying illegal kickbacks, billing for rides that were never provided, and inflating reimbursement claims through false information, they allegedly stole tens of millions of taxpayer dollars. It is a priority of the office and the administration to protect the integrity of federally funded healthcare programs and to hold accountable those who seek to profit through fraud. And moving on down past the quotes from the officials. Let's see. Number one, as set forth in court filings, the defendants owned and operated Tri-Hamlet Taxi Incorporated from approximately January of 2019 to October of 2025. The defendants paid illegal healthcare kickbacks to Medicaid beneficiaries to induce them to request medical transportation services from Tri-Hamlet Taxi, primarily for purported necessary methadone treatment. Also, the defendants systematically inflated their Medicaid reimbursements. And let's see, the defendants used the illicit proceeds of the scheme to, among other things, fund their lifestyles and purchase multiple investment properties and homes with a combined value of approximately $6 million of your tax money. If convicted of the charges, the defendants each face up to 20 years in prison and restitution and forfeiture of at least $35 million, including several real properties and 15 bank accounts. There you have it. And I believe I've got another thing that happened. Actually, no, I believe that's it. Okay, so it must have been the Chicago investigation that I was thinking of. So we'll move on to the CDC. This is 80. Today marks 80 years since the CDC officially opened its doors. What began in 1946 on one floor of a small building in Atlanta with a mission to help stop malaria from spreading across the nation has grown into 8 decades of public health service. Follow along throughout the year as we share stories, photos, and milestones from CDC's history. And it's not a video, but those are just hashtags. That's not a link. Where's the link? I don't know. They didn't give a link. It's just a picture. So not sure where we're supposed to follow along. But anyway, it's their 80th anniversary with the CDC, which of course, after the whole COVID era, they definitely left a sour taste in many Americans' mouths when it comes to CDC. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess, at this point. And from Dr. Roger Marshall, thank you to the Trump administration for taking decisive action against dangerous synthetic 7-OH. We've been fighting for months to get these highly addictive substances off our shelves and out of our communities. This is a major win for American families. And that is from the DEA. They're going to temporarily schedule 7-OH and related substances to protect public safety. So if you're familiar, there's a product out there known as kratom. It is a natural leaf that grows on a tree somewhere in Southeast Asia. I'm trying to think, Indonesia or something like that. But giant trees, they just grow these leaves. They pluck the leaves from the trees, they dry them out, and then they turn them into a powder. They package it, and there you go. That's kratom, 100% natural. And people use it for anxiety, for chronic pain, for insomnia, and a bunch of other things that they claim that it helps them out or it helps them with. People have been using it for years. I did some reading on that prior to this, and the average age of somebody who uses that product is like 42 years old. So it's not like it's popular among like teenagers or anything like that. But there's a compound, an active ingredient compound or what have you, called metragenine that they synthesized, and they created this synthetic 7-OH product, which is apparently it's on par with fentanyl or like a dangerous opioid. And it's extremely potent, so they're banning that, at least temporarily. I'm sure it's going to be permanent. And the DEA is going to be adding it to their Schedule 1 list, but they're not touching kratom itself. The natural product is fine because it has very trace amounts of this. They're more focused on these highly synthesized 7-OH products. They already tried banning kratom. I think it was like in 2016. The DEA, they sent out a notice of intent to schedule that product, and there was massive blowback from the public. Like 3 million people or something like that at the time was taking this product for a variety of ailments that they've been dealing with. And it got so bad, like the DEA, they received over 50,000 phone calls in the first day that they made that announcement. And there were something like 50 members of Congress that had penned a letter to the DEA urging them to pass it off to, might have been the CDC or the NIH or whoever for like clinical study for a period of time. And they did just that. They took it off of their notice of intent. They retracted it. They did not move forward to put it on the Schedule 1 list. And the reason why I'm going through all that is because that's the first time, and up to this day, the last time and only time the DEA has ever withdrawn their intention to label anything as a Controlled 1 substance. That was the first and last time. And they've controlled over like 200 something different substances over the years. And that was the first and last time they did so. But anyway, I'll have this linked. I'm not going to go through like all of the details here, even though it's not an extremely long read, but I think I pretty much covered it. But in the state of Florida, that was probably in January or in February. It was the FDA that sent out a letter of notice to states warning them about this synthetic 7-OH product, which they sell in gas stations, they sell as gummies, they sell as shots, and all these different products, smoke shops and places like that, vape stores where you could buy this stuff. So they sent out a letter to all the different states informing them of this product and how dangerous it is. In Florida, like within days of receiving the letter, they straight up banned it across the whole state. So it's been banned in Florida for a while now. But anyway, so there you go. Synthetic 7-OH. DEA making it officially illegal. And I believe the time frame is 30 days. I think that's how long that the notice of intent is usually for the DEA. So there you have it. So that happened today. And from Secretary Linda McMahon with the Department of Education from 9 hours ago. Only 1 in 4 8th graders, only about 25% of 8th graders show proficiency in civics today. With America's 250th just days away, only 2 days away, it's time to reconnect students with the values that built our country.
We are endowed by our Creator with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But those soccer players who are coming in haven't experienced America. Maybe we take ourselves too much for granted. And I think that's unfortunate. We've always had freedom and liberty as we know it in these current generations. But as we're studying it and trying to make our kids really appreciate, civics and our history and what it took to get this country where it is, and then defending it through, 2 world wars and all of that. But, even 9/11 is ancient history, to some folks that are here, and they don't appreciate our country. But I found when I've been traveling as a Secretary of Education, kids aren't taught in all schools to say the Pledge of Allegiance. They don't have any respect for our flag. They're not taught patriotism, let alone civics. In fact, only about 25% of 8th graders have any kind of appreciation of civics in our country. So we have to do a better job at that, Larry.
We do.
Isn't that wild? That is just absolutely unbelievable. Now, sometimes I don't watch it regularly. It's like once in a blue moon, YouTube will recommend the whatever podcast, and they bring on a bunch of ladies, and they talk like dating and just other everyday things. But one question that was posed to a woman on there was, name 3 countries. So the first lady named 3 countries, and then they went to the next lady and asked her to name 3 countries that the first one didn't name, and she couldn't name a single one. And the first lady, she said like France and China and Germany. So like, well, what about the United States? Oh yeah, United States. And then they kind of fed her Canada and like what's to the south of the United States. So eventually she got 3 countries, but I believe she had a master's degree, which is absolutely insane. People are graduating from college with higher level degrees who can't even name 3 countries. It is unbelievable. So it's not only civics that they're lacking, they're just lacking just basic geography. It is unbelievable. And it's an absolute disgrace that they're what the hell are they teaching in school these days? I mean, again, probably another rhetorical question. Anyway, moving on to Secretary Kennedy. Healthy food starts with healthy soil. Rick Clark joins me to explain how restoring the soil microbiome can reduce chemical inputs, improve nutrient density, and help rebuild a healthier food system. And you can watch the full episode right here on YouTube, so I'll have that linked as well. And we'll take a look at the preview of that video.
We're not putting those acids and those caustic items on our ground.
Which are destroying the microbiome.
It's destroying the microbiome, and then as a result of that is creating food that's not nutritious. Once you stop applying the salts and the acids and the chemicals and the insecticides and stop killing the microbial biome and the benefit of the microbial biome, you then create a healthy environment for now your cash crop to grow in. People say to me all the time, how can you raise non-GMO corn and not have any insecticide? Once you stop killing the beneficial species that prey on the rootworm that's going to affect that corn plant without insecticide, you don't need the insecticide because the beneficial is there to keep the balance. Most of the farms across the Midwest are out of balance, meaning they are 90% bacterial microbial biome and 8 or 9 or 10% fungal. You can't do that. If you want to promote and build soil health, you need to switch from bacterial up here, fungal down here, to this. You've got to get it into balance. And that's what you can see happen to these soils immediately with a soil test. You don't need fancy, expensive equipment to validate that what we're doing is correct.
Well, I knew our soil was getting worse year after year, and a lot of it having to do with the pesticides and everything else they're introducing to it. I didn't know anything about the whole biome with fungals and bacteria and, trying to level it off and get it back to where it was. So, it makes a good point. Healthy food does start with the healthy soil. You can't get healthy food without the soil for which it can be grown in. And from the White House, great American summer, short to the point. Patriotic summer, just an image of the White House in the red, white, and blue. Far cry from the Biden era. Remember that with the rainbow colors. And from John Radcliffe with the CIA. A CIA security officer assisting in recovery operations at the World Trade Center pulled this flag from the wreckage 10 days after the forces of terror struck the nation on 9/11. It's a powerful symbol. Through triumphs and trials alike, our republic will endure. United we stand. And I came across it, figured I would share that, even though it's not exactly new news or anything like that. But it's not very often that John Radcliffe or the CIA at all posts on the X platform. But they did post that today. And from Rapid Response, the Secretary of War recognizes the U.S. Army National Guard soldiers serving in Washington, D.C. to ensure a safe and beautiful capital ahead of our nation's 250th birthday.
So first up here, we have Specialist Edwards from South Carolina. His leadership essentially said he is the epitome of what right looks like for junior soldiers aspiring to become non-commissioned officers in our Army. Everything that he does, he's leading from the front, mentoring, coaching, and teaching, sir. Specialist Alarka, she's a chaplain's assistant. She's from the District of Columbia, but she's done more than just be there for the chaplain. She's picked up every task, including being an RTO for the Joint Task Force Commander, helping in current ops. If there is a gap, she just willingly throws herself into it like we know every soldier, airman, sailor, Marine does for this nation.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, sir. Sergeant First Class Metz from Mississippi. Now, I can personally attest every time I turn around on the street when I'm rolling to an incident, he is there making sure that his soldiers are doing the right things. He has just been a rock star from start to finish, sir. Sir, Sergeant Schultz from Georgia. Again, another one of those, we talk about this being a junior leader-led mission. Sergeant Schultz is one of those junior leaders that's acting way above. I would say he's been doing things at the Sergeant First Class level since the beginning of this. All right, sir. Sergeant Major Aubrey Hayes from the District of Columbia. From day one, he's been there making things happen. As people were rolling in, figuring out how to get them out to ranges, over 1 million rounds scheduled, executed from Pennsylvania all the way down to Southern Virginia. He's made it happen personally. Mr. Secretary, Sergeant Franklin from Georgia. Again, just another one of those. I'm getting redundant here, but this is exactly what you have asked our NCO Corps to do. Step up, lead from the front, and show not just Americans, but the world what the United States Army is made of. Sergeant Franklin is one of those guys. Sergeant First Class Bernie from Georgia again. Again, he has been here for quite some time. When did you get here? September? May. Okay, well, excuse me. Again, another one of those examples of every time I turn around, he's there. That's why I'm getting confused. It must be the heat. But again, leading those junior NCOs, getting them developed, sir. Okay, so we've got Sergeant Miranda Cabrera. I will tell you again, sir, he has been jumping up, and in fact, he, about 8-10 days ago, administered a Narcan, saved a life right here in the district, setting the example for others, and he's been doing that since the very beginning.
Saving lives. There you have it, man, protecting our 250th anniversary, the National Guard. And I do have one more. Got another one. Let's see. Let me go back. May not be as long. I think they're talking about the fountains in the next video. So in this one, Secretary of War, this background noise is perfect. It's the sound of ingrates, of ingratitude, the people who are so blinded by ideology they can't see law and order and common sense in front of them. There's nothing ideological about this group. And law and order is something all Americans deserve.
This background noise this morning is perfect. It's the sound of ingrates, of ingratitude, of people who are so blinded by ideology they can't see law and order and common sense in front of them. That there's nothing ideological about this group. There's nothing political about this exercise. Law and order is something all Americans deserve. Black, white, rich, poor, man or woman from D.C. or far-flung places in this country. And the beautiful thing is when I look out at this group, that's all of you. From all across this great country. You're not from Washington, most of you, but this is your capital. And you believe in this 250th year that it should be safe and it should be secure for every single citizen that lives here and every single citizen that comes to visit in this 250th year. And you do it whether it's cold, whether it's raining, whether it's, well, it doesn't snow here very often, whether it's snowing or whether it's 100 degrees on the 4th of July. See, these ingrates will fade away. They'll go back to wherever they came from. You will do your job, and you will do it professionally, with courage, boldly, assisting with arrests, helping people who need help.
You know what? I wonder if Pete Hegseth is going to be gunning for a political office at some point in the future. I have a feeling he might be. From Homeland Security, a free nation built by and for Americans, land of the free. Cowboy on a horseback with the American flag. It's like out west. And from the U.S. Embassy in London, and this is what I'm going to finish on tonight with Secretary Rubio. As we commemorate 250 years of independence, I call on our allies and embassies around the world to join us in celebrating the American principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happy Independence Day, and may God bless the United States of America.
This year marks a historic milestone for our nation, the 250th anniversary of American independence. Our founders knew that liberty was not an abstraction, floating above history. They knew that parchment promises alone could not make a nation free. Many failed states and tyrannical regimes have borrowed the words of rights and liberties, but a constitution is only as strong as the people it belongs to. America has never been merely a proposition. It has always been a real and living civilization, a unique and distinctive people, unlike any other nation or people in the history of the world. We are a people born on the edge of the known world, a frontier nation, not only in geography, from the hardy pioneers on the Oregon Trail to the astronauts transcending the limits of Earth itself. America made the frontier a principle of national life. America is an exceptional nation because we are an exceptional people. And with God's grace, we will continue to be for the next 250 years as well. As we commemorate 250 years of independence, I call on our allies and embassies around the world to join us in celebrating the American principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happy Independence Day, and may God bless the United States of America.
Happy Independence Day. What a wonderful country. We're very blessed to be Americans. And with that, I'm going to finish up this episode. So that concludes tonight, and I'll be back with another one tomorrow as we cover the swamp Monday through Friday. And also, I post daily on X, which is where you can peek at some of the content for tomorrow's episode. And don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for watching. God bless the troops, and God bless America.